G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jono. It is a cold, wintry day here in Melbourne, but we're going to warm up by making some AeroPress. As you can see here, I've got both the AeroPress Go and the standard AeroPress. Here we've got the cup for the AeroPress Go. It's a little bit smaller than the standard one, but obviously everything fits in the cup and you can go. So we're going to go through a couple of different techniques for making AeroPress, the way I like to do it, and some really good, just run-of-the-mill, great coffee every day kind of recipes. So let's jump straight into it. First of all, we're going to jump into a good daily driver recipe, which I love to use. Which is essentially James Hoffmann's recipe. It is a great daily driver because it yields a very good result, but it also gives you the options of kind of making it your own, which you'll see in the next technique that we do. Okay, so I'm going to use the AeroPress Go for this one. I'm going to grab the cup, stick it on the scales, got my filter paper in the cap, and that goes straight into the AeroPress and onto the cup. Tear everything off, add 16 grams of coffee, filter roasted coffee, ground what I would grind for V60. Even out the bed, tear off, start the timer, and we pour 200 grams. It's pouring at a nice steady rate, making sure all the coffee is wet. And there we go, 200 grams. And now we just wait until 2 minutes have elapsed. It is so easy. With a good cup of coffee, this recipe, you can just make delicious coffee all day, every day. So 2 minutes have elapsed. Lock the plunger in, and we want to take the AeroPress off the scales. Never want to press onto the scales. And then we just draw down. Just even, steady pressure. And once you kind of hear the air being pushed out, then you know you're done. You can also see it. So there we go. There's our cup of very simple AeroPress coffee. Once again, that's a super simple recipe, but with a good coffee, a good grind, and a good roast, you can achieve a really good result. But now we can take it to the next level. To take the AeroPress to the next level, we're going to take some of my V60 rules and we're going to apply it here. So we're going to do a 50 gram bloom, and we're also going to do an agitation at 120 grams. We're still going to keep to a 200 gram yield and 16 grams of coffee. But the first thing we're going to do to help take this to the next level is change the vessel. We're going to ditch the AeroPress Go cup and go to a really nice mug. The vessel that you drink out of is just as important as everything else you put in to the coffee that you're making. So we've got our coffee in there, ready to go, tear it off. We're going to go to 50 grams and do a bloom. And we're going to let that sit for 30 seconds, as I would for a V60. Now up to 120 grams. And we agitate all the way down to the bed. Okay. And now we're going to finish pouring to 200. There we go. And now we wait for 2 minutes to elapse. Okay, 2 minutes have elapsed. So let's get the plunger in and press our coffee. So here's our AeroPress with the bloom and the agitation, and let's have a good taste. So really with the bloom, you get more sweetness and cleanliness up front. The first one was a really good cup of coffee, but it was probably a bit heavy. And so by doing this bloom and then the agitation, you kind of get a much cleaner cup all the way through, but you still get the character that the AeroPress gives to the coffee. Now the last recipe I want to touch on is the inverted method. So we have to get rid of the AeroPress Go for that because it's just a little bit too small. So we're going to go to the standard AeroPress and we're going to do the inverted method. One of the things I love about the inverted method is it allows me to transpose my entire V60 recipe into the AeroPress. Also, you don't lose any of the coffee from drippage or anything because the slurry is sitting on the plunger as opposed to the filter paper. Now we're just about ready to go with this inverted method. The last thing to do is to put in the filter paper, and it is recommended, or I do recommend, to pre-wet the filter paper with this inverted method just so it doesn't fall out as you're flipping or as you're putting it on. Everything's now set up, ready to go. Got my 17 grams of coffee this time, and we're going to go to a yield of 250. So I'm just going to flatten that out. There we go. Tear everything off, and we start the 50 gram bloom. Now we wait for 30 seconds. And now we're pouring up to 120. Now we're going to pour to 200 and wait for 1 minute and 15 seconds. Now final pour to make it up to 250 grams. As you can see, it only just fits this yield, but yeah, that's because I want as much coffee out of this as possible. So play around with the yields and the ratios and stuff, and that's all for you to play around with in an AeroPress, which is one of the great things about it. Now the cap goes on. Just going to use the AeroPress Go cup, and we flip and we press. One thing to remember, the more coffee you put into the AeroPress, the harder it will be to press. Same with the grind. If you have a finer grind, it's going to be harder. Coarser grind is going to be easier. Now the question is, when you take your V60 recipe into the AeroPress, will it taste like your V60? And yeah, it does, but you get that added AeroPress charm and character. With my recipe, my V60 recipe, you get all the balance and the sweetness and the clean cup, but then you get that extra heaviness that the AeroPress brings to the body. And the mouthfeel is a bit more silky through the AeroPress, so add that into what's already a good recipe and end up with a fantastic cup of coffee. Before we end the video, guys, AeroPress really is something that it gives you what you put in. So a simple recipe will yield a simple cup of coffee, and a complex recipe will give you a more complex cup. But it's really up to you to decide how you want your AeroPress to taste. And to me, that's the best thing about it because it's so easily manipulatable. So yeah, share your recipe in the comments and we can talk about it. Thanks for watching the video, guys. This has been super fun. I love the AeroPress. Get your hands on one and get to making coffee, and I'll see you on the next video.